You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Packers Talk.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast, part of PackersTalk.com network. I'm your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. We are diehard Packers fans, just love talking about the Pack. We're not getting distracted by the national sports media talking points and nonsense. We're sticking to real football, diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down games during the season, and now sorting through all of the drama, draft, and dreams of the offseason. If y'all want to support the pod, please spike that like button for us. Most importantly, jump on over to YouTube, type in Packers Talk Network, hit the subscribe button for us. It will do us a great deal of help and takes you very little effort, time, and anything else. So please, please, please do that right now. Go hit that subscribe button right now. Go do it. Go do it. Go do it. All right. Excellent. Love you, subscribers. Love you guys hanging out with us every week on Monday nights at 9:30, streaming live, talking Pack. And tonight we have a full draft class to talk about. No more guessing, no more speculating, no more wondering, no more fog of war, none of the above. We have 6 new Green Bay Packers to talk about. Who will contribute? Who's your favorite? Who's your least favorite? And is this the draft class that gets us back to the Super Bowl? I don't know. We're going to find out. First, let's take care of some business. The show is once again sponsored by Wisconsin's own Ticket King. For over 30 years, Ticket King has been providing Packers tickets to Packers fans, as well as Bucks tickets, Brewers tickets, all the tickets. Summerfest coming up. You can find them on the web at theticketking.com or visit their locations in Green Bay, Milwaukee. And remember, support all those local businesses, Wisconsin and otherwise. Tim, good evening, sir. What do you think, man? How we doing after this draft?
Good evening, Miles. Doing well. Had a better weekend than Mike Vrabel did. And
Shots fired.
Shots fired. No, feeling pretty good. I like the draft. I thought they hit on the areas they needed to hit on. I mean, we've been talking about the positions they need all off season. They went after some of them in free agency, and then they doubled up on again in the draft. So if you're looking at positions they need, they hit most of them or all of them, depending on how you stack them in the draft. Thought they did a lot of things that made sense and were, nothing that was like out of left field. Very sensible, very solid draft from them. They, like I said, hit positions of need. They hit them with players who were in the areas of where they got value on those guys. And I think they got players that can contribute early for this team. Maybe not, week one, but I think players that during the season will definitely be big contributors to the Packers, and they absolutely improved the competition in depth. So overall, I'm excited about it. We'll go through the whole thing. There's a couple things that I wasn't completely happy about, or can nitpick a little bit, but overall, yeah, I think they did a really solid job this weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man. We've been talking about some of these names, and it's not just, hey, we've talked about all the names, so we can say we talked about these names. There's a few on here that you and I specifically brought up earlier in the offseason. We've been tracking these. Certainly last week, we did our mock draft, got our guy, Danny Dennis Sutton, a little earlier than Goot did. So point for Goot there. But overall, I feel like this was a class that kind of verified our own speculation a little bit, maybe not entirely, but it just kind of goes to show that if you get in there, you pay attention, you listen to what the GM says, a lot of times you can at least know the direction that they're looking. Overall, I was very satisfied with this draft. I don't like to give grades because we don't know who's gonna do what. But if I did have to, I would give this one like a B+. I'm just knowing what we know right now and in the moment, I'm very satisfied. I won't say I'm like, I think the Twitter term for Packers Twitter is pants off. We won't go any further than that. These guys get too excited. On. But my pants are on. We have pants on right now. But I like.
I never have pants on, so I'm always pants off. Every week I'm pants off, so we got to be honest.
Damn, come on. This is the late night Packers Packers podcast. No, but I like it. I like it. I don't want to go too over the moon and be all hyperbolic just because it's the most recent or anything like that. I have heard some people say that they think this is Goot's best draft class. I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I guess you got to let them play out, but I can't say that at this moment after the draft that I'm the most excited I've ever been for a Goot draft class. But I don't want to like throw cold water on it either. I think that like you nailed it. Like I think they were real responsible with this one. I thought they were methodical, and just based on what we know about the Packers front office and how they operate, I felt like this draft went as you would expect it to go for the most part. You know, you can't control how the board falls to you, but as far as how the board fell, I can't say that there were. Actually, I wasn't watching the draft every pick super intently. I was more like poking my head in to see who they picked. But I can't say that there was any picks where it's like, oh man, I wish they would have gotten this guy instead. You know, and I think that usually there's a few of those, and I just didn't see that, not from my perspective, or I didn't really see that from other people either on the Packer Twitterverse or otherwise. So yeah, I really felt like this one was a solid draft. I think there's a lot of potential here, but I think the floor is very high. I think that's maybe the way to look at it. Not necessarily that the ceiling is the highest they've ever drafted, but this might be the highest floor that they've drafted. So, and with 6 picks, that might be a little easier to say than if you had like 10 picks. But yeah, I mean, overall, you check the boxes you need to check. You know, you got a new defensive coordinator, at least in theory. We haven't heard from him yet, so he might still exist in some capacity. But the guy's going to need some talent, right? He's going to need some pieces to work with. You can't assume that he just had everything he needed walking into the Packers. So hopefully, and what I would assume by the number of defensive picks that they made, they got some guys that Gannon needed, whatever you want to say there. And overall, I like the guys they got, and I just don't see anything here that I'm super upset with. So, I mean, maybe we start off like, what was your favorite pick?
Well, I think I've already given it away by some of our draft previews, but it's Dennis Sutton. Getting him in the 4th round, like I didn't think he was going to fall that far. Maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe I'm way off on him, but I think he's at least a solid depth contributing pass rusher for them. Maybe not, week 1. Like let's adjust our expectations. Like he's not going to come in and start for this team week 1, or maybe he will. Maybe But my thought is like he's a depth guy to begin with, but. There's a ton of athletic ability there. I think there's a ton of untapped potential. I don't think the coaching in college maybe wasn't taking advantage of his talents. I think there's untapped potential. So I like him a lot. I think he adds to their pass rushing room, adds to their edge group. I think it's a good sign that they weren't comfortable with who they already had. Like I like Barron Sorrell. Van Ness, I like the idea of Van Ness. We just haven't seen him have that breakout yet, and it's pretty far along now. They have a decision they're going to have to make by the end of this week, whether to pick up that 5th-year option or not. That's going to be interesting. Oliver, he played 1 game last year. We have no idea what he could be. Brenton Cox, he missed most of last season. He showed some positive signs in 2024, but he missed most of last season. So, like, you and I talked about it. Like I was worried about if they would come out of this draft without any edge rushers, because I think it's a position they needed to address. And I thought they would look at it and be like, well, we have all these young guys. We got to give them snaps and let them develop. And, we drafted them for a reason. And they didn't do that. They went and got an edge rusher in the 4th round who can be part of that mix. And I think that was a really smart idea. Like you can never have enough pass rushers. You don't know what any of these guys are going to be. You have hope of what they can be. Either you drafted them where you did for a reason, you're developing for a reason, but you don't know. So have another edge rusher in the mix. I think that was smart. And I like his athletic ability and what he can be. So yeah, I think Dennis Sutton, he's my favorite pick. And I just think they added depth at positions of need, and that's a really good thing. And I think he just improved the room. Like, taking 2 cornerbacks, great. Like, and we had talked about that. Like, take 2 cornerbacks, maybe even take 3, and they ended up with 2, which is fine. But like, your cornerback room is so much better now than it was at the end of last season between St. Joe's and now the 2 draft picks. They needed a nose tackle. They went and got a nose tackle, and they showed us too that, and this was something else that we had talked about, because everybody was Dominique Orange and great, but like, he didn't offer pass rush. Chris McClellan gives you a little more pass rush. I think they see in him the ability to, and Goody kind of said it without calling him out directly, but like, they see more pass rush in McClellan than they saw in Dominique Orange. And they're not going to take a nose tackle on the first couple of days that doesn't have that potential. They don't want somebody who's just a run stuffer. Like, they'll take that guy on day 3 maybe, but not in the 3rd round, 2nd round. So I think that makes sense. I like McClellan, and doubling up a cornerback was smart. Adding a pass rusher to the mix was smart, and obviously a versatile offensive lineman who can play center, who can play guard for you. It makes sense. So yeah, I think they obviously improved their depth, and they improved just their overall talent and their competition that they can have at positions of need. But to go back to your question, my favorite draft pick was Dennis Sutton. That's the obvious one. We had talked about him a lot leading up to the draft as potentially possibility at 52, and obviously they got him in the 4th round. So, I was off thinking that he was a possibility at 52. But Goody did mention too, and I thought this was interesting, Friday night after they made their first 2 picks, that they were trying to trade back up into the end of the 3rd round, and they couldn't get a trade to work out for him. And then he said after they took Dennis Sutton that's who they were trying to trade out for. So maybe you don't know if he's truly being honest, but he did, say ahead of time that they were trying to get back up into the 3rd round, and it would make sense if they were trying to get up there for Dennis Sutton. And then it didn't happen, and they stayed in the 4th round, and he fell to him. So the board kind of worked out for him that way. But yeah, he was my favorite one.
Now, I wouldn't call him my favorite pick, but I was definitely happy to see the pick. And a lot of this, when you get, there's some validation in it, right? Like there's or maybe vindication. I see our showers has vindicated in there. But we speculate for months with film and measurables, but you don't know what the GMs know, right? Like, these guys, as I'd mentioned before about one of them, they're calling these guys high school, right? Like, they're calling their high school coaches, and who knows how much further they're going than that on some of these guys. So they know a lot more about these guys than we do. And when you see a guy like Sutton with the RAS score that he has, and the physical upside, just to kind of ball that up into one term there, you wonder, like, all right, why the lack of production? Why aren't you a bigger deal? And for me, them picking him even in the 4th, or even trying to trade back into the 3rd for him, shows you, like, hey, whatever the issue is with lack of production, they think they can either fix it or it's not an issue at all. So I was excited to see the pick, right? Because the physical upside you can't deny, right? Like, we see the testing, you can see him on film and in his highlights. It's like, dang, man, like, you get this guy all the time. This is a great player. So you do wonder, like, what is the defensive system? How did that treat him? Did that hold him back? Did it not? Whatever the case may be, does a change of scenery change that? And the Packers believe it does. Or, maybe it's not even something you need to change, just he gets better, right? But yeah, I like the pick. I do like the pick. I can't say I'm upset with the pick at all in any way, shape, or form. And just from a value perspective, I'm glad we got him in the 4th instead of the 2nd. Not that I would have been mad about it in the 2nd, because again, that's more like, all right, well, that's what they see he's worth. But getting him later and being able to get somebody else with that higher pick, that's a win, man.
And I just want to point out, like, you talk about production, and I'm a Penn State fan. I watch this guy a lot. 2024, when Penn State went on a run to the college football semifinals, he was really he was awesome. Like, down the stretch into the postseason, like, he was productive. He was just as good as Abdul Carter, like, in the playoffs. And there was a thought, and I think the Penn State coaches kind of thought he was going to the draft after that season, and then he decided to come back, and they were like, oh, oh, wow, really? You're coming back? Because they thought he was going pro at that point. Wherever he would have been drafted, might have been in the same area, who knows? But he kind of really came on the end of 2024. They changed their defensive coordinator, changed their system. And I mean, the whole program kind of fell apart with Franklin's firing, and they had a really down year. The defense was a lot of players didn't fit that scheme or what they wanted to do, and it was just kind of a mess. But I don't think his production was that bad. Like, I think he was pretty productive. Now, some of the highlights or some of the clips of him that I've seen online, like, he was also one of those guys that got close to sacks, but the ball was just coming out too soon. And we've seen that in Green Bay before. That was one of Rashawn Gary.
Yes.
Pre-2025 Rashawn Gary was he would get close, but the ball would come out, right? So I think that was happening to Dennis Sutton at times. And I don't think the scheme in 2025 was very good for him or a lot of players on that Penn State defense. And then the other thing I'll point out about him is he played in their bowl game, which was they played in the Pinstripe Bowl, completely meaningless bowl game. He knew he was going to the NFL draft. He was obviously a day 2 pick. They had tons of guys opt out of that game who were transferring or who were graduating or who were going to the NFL. And he could have very easily opted out of that game, but he played. And not only did he start, like, he played the whole way, and he just said, I'm a football player. Like, this is my team. I'm playing. Like, I'm not missing this game. And it was like kind of eye-opening, like this, because you see it so many other teams, not just Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl, but like they opt out of bowl games if they're going to the pros or if they're going to transfer. It's like, and he could have done it, but he chose to play the game. And I think that says something about his competitiveness and his love of football. So yeah, he can be a little stiff, and he's got to finish more, and he's got to come up with, more counter moves and stuff like that. Like he's got a lot of work to do in the NFL, but you see his athletic testing numbers, you see his size, like there's definitely something to work with. And he did have some production, he's got to finish plays more, but there's stuff there. Like he's got stuff to work with. This isn't like a, throwing a dart at a player. Like there's talent there. I think NFL coaching, hopefully better NFL coaching than he was getting in college, and a better scheme fit is going to go a long way. And I think just having Micah Parsons there to learn from, and they're both Penn State guys, so I think there's going to be a connection there between them. They didn't play together or anything like that, but Parsons was going to take him under his wing. I can almost guarantee it. And just seeing that work, and a player who loves to play football, like I think that's going to help him. So to get a guy like that with his athletic profile, and you can go back and see some of the comparisons, guys like Daniel Hunter, like to get a guy like that in the 4th round we'll see how it works out. But like he's got a lot of ability. Like they might have found something there in the 4th round.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And let's like look at the data, right? They've been good in the 4th round. They've gotten some really good players out of the 4th round. So maybe that was even part of the, like there needed to be a little bit of superstition here, right? Like if DDS goes in the 3rd round, he might be a terrible player, but because we got him in the 4th round, it'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So no, I totally understand that being your favorite pick. And, that I hope he turns out, because this draft to me feels like kind of an upside hopeful draft, right? Like a lot of these guys really have strong upside and maybe weren't the perfect prospect, but if they turn out and live up to their potential, they're going to be great. So yeah, that's kind of how I see this and how I see Dennis Sutton. And I'm going back and I'm looking at his numbers. Numbers aren't bad. You're right. Like if we look at even just the PFF grade from 24, he had a 73.2, and 25 he had an 80.1. And to your point, playing in the bowl game, man, that I don't think anybody will ever admit it, because you have to respect the player's business decision, especially if you're a team that wants to draft that player. But playing in the bowl games, man, it's got to mean something. Like to me, it means something. Like I don't know, just thinking from a player's perspective, a guy that wants to be on the field is a guy that I want to be on the field with. Like a guy that looks at it like, I can take this one off. I don't know. It's like it's a marginal difference. It's small, but it's meaningful, right? It shows you something about the priorities of the person, right? And again, you have to respect the business decision because there's a lot of money on the line. Not dogging anybody that sits out, but the guys who choose not to sit out, it's like an extra little something on your resume, man, because it just shows like, look, the dude loves football. He's willing to put his body on the line, even in a game that, you know, doesn't have the most meaning to it. I want that guy on my team. You know, I want that guy who's ready just to go to battle because there's a battle to go to, right? It doesn't matter what that battle means. So I do. I like that. I like that a lot. And, you know, very, very hopeful that he continues to improve and increase that caliber of player that he is. For me, I've got a favorite and I've got an honorable mention. So my favorite, and this is, you know, not even creative, it's Cisse, man. The more I watched Cisse, and I sound like Andy. I heard Andy say this. This is not Andy saying this. I'm saying this. The more I watched him, the more I liked him. And it did take kind of a double take. You know, we looked at him earlier on in the offseason. It was like, yeah, pretty good. That next round of looking at him and kind of considering the context, it's like, dang, like there's a player here. And there was a chart flowing around that described, I think it was the hit rate based on age when the player is drafted. And I can't remember what the threshold was, but it was basically like the younger they are, the higher the hit rate. So when you've got the option between, say, a Trey Stooks, who's I think about to turn 25, or a Brandon Cisse, who's not even 21 and will be 25 when his second contract kicks in.
Crazy.
That's a big difference, man. And especially if that data is real, I would expect front offices to be aware of that the hit rate's much higher for the younger players. So the more I was thinking about the upside of Cisse, the more excited I got, and the more I was hoping that was going to be the pick, especially after the way that round one fell. So I was very, very excited to see that. And I really believe he could be the steal of the draft. His upside, I feel like, is as high as any DB in this draft. And that's what maybe Caleb Downs would throw him. He's in a different category, but yeah, his upside is tremendous, man. And the door's wide open for the Packers roster for him to kick the door in on CB1, right? Go be CB1 and be that guy for the next 10 to 15 years. Yeah, that was my favorite pick. I loved it. Very, very excited. I was driving when they made that pick, and I had a little bit of an enthusiastic driver's seat moment. You know, I didn't have anybody else in the car with me, so I could get a little embarrassing. But I was very, very excited about that pick. My honorable mention, and we'll dive into Cisse a little bit more, but I gotta lay my honorable mention out there. Trey Smack, and I'm probably, you know, in the minority on saying that this is one of my favorite picks, because I know most Packer fans are rolling their eyes at drafting a kicker, even though the best kicker in franchise history was drafted, I think, in the 6th round, right? It was Mason Crosby. I think he was a 6th round pick.
He was.
It's like, guys, that's the recipe. You know, it's kind of like what they do with the kicker. Like, don't get mad at it because it works. So, or I'm see the QBs, not the kickers. And the other thing is, like, look, I really liked McManus when they brought him in. I thought it was a good attempt at solving a very urgent problem. But last season, man, that was bad. That was bad. And yeah. I remember, I'm old enough to remember when Mason Crosby had a struggling season and everybody wanted to get rid of him. And then he came back and he was the best kicker in the league the next year. So I've got kind of both sides of this thing where I'm like,
but McManus is a lot older. He's a lot older than when
very true. Very true. I think Crosby was still in his 20s when he had that struggling season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I see both sides of it, but in this case, I'm looking at it going, man, like that, some of that's unforgivable. So maybe you don't cut the guy because you have seen him at his best and his best is damn good, but you have to bring in real competition, which is what I think they did. So I definitely have a bias for Trey Smack. Got to talk to him at the Shrine Bowl. I got to meet his parents at the Shrine Bowl, which is kind of cool and unintentional. Nice people, fun people. But he is a neat guy, and he wants the pressure moments. He wants the high-pressure moments. You could see it not only in what he says, right, in his interview, but observing him at the Shrine Bowl, you could see every moment that he got to go out there to kick, he was pumped. He couldn't wait. He had his game face on. He was very serious. And just he's a competitor, man. Like that's what you want to see from your kickers. And I think sometimes the kickers become more technicians than competitors, which fair enough. You're not getting out there and hitting somebody. You're not getting out there and making a crazy athletic catch or run or something. You're kicking a ball. So kick it the best you can, which, usually the path to that is to be a master technician, which he may very well be. Guys nailing 60 plus yarders already. But his mentality, I think, is what made the difference of why they drafted him. Because I think what's going on between the ears, that guy's going to be a kicker, a very good kicker in the NFL for a long time. So that's one that, let's put the Anders Carlson PTSD away. We're going to put that away. And Trey Smack is our guy. Like, he is going to smack the ball. We're going to come up with all sorts of fun. I've seen already some videos on Twitter, smack that and all that. I was a very big fan of this pick, and yeah, I get it. You traded up for him. You traded your 7th round picks, which, yes, Goody has hit on in the past. But if you're telling me you give up your 7th round picks to go secure the kicker of the franchise for the next 10 to 15 years, deal. I'm in.
Well, let's hope it turns out like that. I wasn't a big fan of it, but if it solves the issues they've had at kicker since they moved on from Mason Crosby, then fine, it was worth it, and I'll be totally on board with it. And the 7th round picks, really, if you look at it, aren't that big of a deal because they ended up signing a pretty good class of undrafted guys. And
for sure,
2 of those guys probably would have been the 7th round picks. So you signed them as free agents. There's not much of a difference. I don't like drafting kickers just in general. But I think this is a good sign because it seemed like when the season was over, they were throwing their support behind McManus after he missed 3 kicks in the Bears game. And you can't tell me he was hurt at that point because he really wasn't. He had been back for a while from injury. He missed 3 kicks in the playoff game, a year after missing a very makeable kick in the Eagles playoff game. And I know he missed a bunch of kicks where he was coming back from injury and he probably shouldn't have been kicking. But he was on the field. He was the one that wanted to kick. They shouldn't have allowed it. That's another issue, but he missed the kicks. He's also aging. And I don't think his leg strength definitely isn't as good as it used to be. And you had one injury. As you age, you're more susceptible to injury. So True. You can't trust it. And after the Chicago game, I was ready to move on from him. And it just sounded like they were really behind him. And maybe that was a Bisaccia thing. Now Bisaccia isn't there. So their eyes are open and they want competition. But I just figured his competition would have been Haversick, who's still on the roster for now, or some other like kicker they picked up off the street. But the fact that they went out there and drafted a kicker, like, this is Smack's job to lose, really. Like, maybe McManus is lights out in training camp, doesn't miss a kick, Smack struggles, and then McManus wins the job. And that could be the case. I still think McManus could be a good kicker for you. But I think they're looking ahead and thinking that not only could Smack take his job now, but like Smack can be their kicker long term, whereas McManus, it's year to year with him at best. And it might be time to move on from him now. So why not get that kicker now who can be your next Mason Crosby, your next Ryan Longwell, Chris Jackie, the list of kickers that they've had that have been good for a long period of time. Whereas McManus, you just don't know. And the last thing you saw from him was just an awful playoff game. So yeah, if Smack is their long-term kicker and their long-term solution, then it was worth it. I don't love drafting kickers, but yeah, I'm just ready for like this kicker carousel to end and just find a replacement who you can count on, right? Like, and he might be it, and he definitely looks like he has the leg strength, probably better leg strength at this point than McManus has, because just McManus's age, and it just doesn't look like he has the strong leg anymore that he used to have when he was in Denver. So yeah, just go out there and make your kicks. I don't want to worry about the kicker anymore. Like,
well, I'm fine starting the Trey Smack fan club. I'll be the president of that if I have to, but I think he's the guy. I think he'll beat out McManus in camp, and I do hope that it's a true competition. Because look, if McManus is the better kicker coming out of camp, then keep him. I mean, let's not be silly here. Like you're saying, we need to solidify the kicker position because the kicker mathematically losing the game for you in the playoffs against the Bears is unacceptable. right? There was probably a time where that guy gets fired the next day. Like, you can't. Like, you can't, because he missed, I think, what? It was 2 field goals and an extra point, wasn't it? 7 points worth?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a drop touchdown, right? Like, it's just not okay, man. Like, it's not okay. If it's on one play, like a DB blows a coverage and, is responsible for a touchdown. Okay, it's one play out of many, but that's 3 separate plays that he missed in a playoff game against the Bears. Come on, like, dude, that is that is the peak
job.
of your job, right? Like, you play this game not to be good in preseason or training camp or even in September. You play this game, you get paid the money to be your best in the playoffs, especially against a rival. Like, a rival is like even higher, and for to come out and put up one of your worst games ever in that situation, just, for me, it's unforgivable. I think, and I'm an irrational person, so let's not say that I'm, the beacon of responsibility here. But if I'm the GM, I think I'm cutting him the next day, man. Like, you lost me this game. I can't have that. Now, sure, you can look around at other things that went wrong in that game, and boy, would we all like to have a conversation with LaFleur about it. But I mean, the kicker's just as responsible as anybody else. Anybody else. And when it comes to adding Trey Smack, and we traded up for him, all that, he was the only kicker drafted. And I want to put it out there because I looked into this a little bit. I didn't go do a deep dive on the kickers of this class, but there were other good kickers in this class. The other kicker that was at the Shrine Bowl had a really good record, similar, field goal percentage and all that. Stat sheet, I guess, the whole compilation of kicker stats as Trey Smack. They were very similar. That's why, for me, Trey Smack, what's going on between the ears is the difference for him. I think that's why he got drafted and none of the other guys did. And certainly they'll probably get camp invites and all that. But yeah, so I was very excited about that. I liked that pick from a personal perspective and from, the kicker, situation perspective. It's the whole draft to me. And then I like this. And I think it'll fly in the face of what the front office usually says. They addressed needs. They're not just going to come out. They can't. At this point, they can't say, well, we just drafted the best player available. Like, well, how convenient that every single one of them was a need.
Positions of need. Best player available, positions of need. Like, right.
And you went out of your way with the kicker. And was it McClellan that they traded up for too?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, I like that approach. And I would even appreciate the honesty if they were willing to do so. They probably aren't, to say, like, for them to come out and say, yeah, we addressed some needs in this thing, instead of, Ted Thompson was going to literally, rest in peace, sir, to the grave saying best player available. Like, that guy would just not let it go. It's going to be best player available. Like, we're just not going to entertain anything else. And he wasn't a great press conference anyway. But, I appreciate that they did that. I appreciate that they approached this draft the way that they did. And I said it before the draft, I felt like this was a quality over quantity draft. And I specifically was hoping that they were trading back up into the first round for that. I don't think they needed to. I don't think I saw anybody go in the first round and was like, dang, man, I wish they would have traded up for that guy. Realistically speaking, right? Like, you're not going to trade up into the top 10 where, some of those big time difference makers went. But yeah, so, once the first round fell the way that it did, I was pretty happy with it, and they did go quality over quantity. But in doing so, you look at this roster now, it's pretty complete, at least based on what these guys should be, right? Like, what will always be different. Injuries happen, all that. But you've got a pretty complete roster. There's not any glaring holes right now. There's no position that you're looking at going, I hope defenses or offenses don't figure that out. Like, you got depth at corner now. You didn't have that. You got depth on the O-line. That was I really loved the Burton pick. You got depth at edge. You got depth at D tackle. You have depth where you needed it, where in the season finished you didn't have, and you have increased competition at all those places. And then, obviously the free agents and trades that you made, the other additions that we've already talked about. I like the way the roster looks right now. I really do. And, it's sure it would have been fun to see a receiver, tight end, a running back taken. Those positions are always fun to see. But this felt like a very responsible draft class to me. So
I
who
agree with that.
Who would you say is your least favorite draft pick? Is it the kicker?
It would be the kicker. We discussed him, but again, like if he turns out to be the long term solution, then I love the pick. I can't knock it too much. It's not something that I would have done in the moment when I saw it. That was the one where literally the only pick where I'm like, what the hell are they doing? But you look at it, and again, if it works out, it's absolutely worth it. Would I have taken like an offensive lineman or another D lineman or a receiver type, whatever? Like I would have went somewhere else with that pick and keeping the 7th rounders. But again, if he's the long term answer there at kicker, it's fine. Other than that, like I don't have any issues with any other picks. I just think that my other complaint is they only had 6 picks, and I would love to see them come out with more picks than that. But it's so abnormal for them. Not, Goody, Ted Thompson would have never came out with 6 picks. Goody hasn't done that. So maybe it's telling us what they really think of this draft class, that it just wasn't worth it, or that a lot of these guys that they're going to get late in the draft, they just ended up signing as free agents because there was, a lot of guys that they had grades on who were 7th rounders or priority free agents. And that could very well be the case. It wasn't a strong class. Like if you look in the 1st round, like there's not a whole lot of difference makers that were taken. Now who knows? Maybe all the experts are wrong, but not a great draft class. And I think they're probably telling us that by only coming out of it with 6 picks. Like I never thought they would only come out of it with 6 picks. That's crazy to me. I like the ones that they picked though, so I can't knock that. So yeah, I would have liked more players to improve the depth and improve the competition, but the ones they did take, they're going to improve the depth in the competition. I just would have liked more of it. I like their roster, and I see some like 53-man roster projections already coming out, which it's way too early for that stuff. But like you look at them and you're like, that's a pretty good roster at this point. And absolutely things are going to change. Some guys will make the team that you're not expecting. There's going to be injuries. I still think there's going to be players that they acquire from outside. I don't want to get too far ahead, but I'm thinking they're going to get 1 or 2 veterans between now and minicamp. And Goody kind of has hinted at that now that the draft's over and the compensatory pick formula doesn't factor into anything for next year. I think they're going to bring in a veteran or 2. And I think there's a couple spots where they could still use some more depth, whether that's offensive line. I still think nose tackle, because rookie defensive linemen don't contribute a whole lot. So asking a lot of McClellan is risky. Running back, and then tight end. And Goody specifically mentioned one of his regrets was not getting a tight end in the draft, specifically a Y tight end. He's telling you what he's going to do, right? Like he said in his pre-draft press conference, they were going to increase the numbers at cornerback, and he went out and drafted 2. And he said that they needed a nose tackle for Gannon's system, and they went out and drafted a nose tackle. Now he's saying he regrets not taking a tight end in the draft. He's going to go get a tight end, whether that's one on the street right now or somebody that gets cut loose. But at some point, he's going to get a tight end. Plus, they have between now and training camp cut down time. Like they're going to bring in more guys, but I like the players they brought in. I like the depth of the roster, but I still think there's more that they can improve, and that would have helped by having more than 6 picks. So I guess, my one, I don't have a specific least favorite pick, but it's just overall only coming out of this thing with six draft picks. I would have liked them more. I would have just liked to have seen them have more shots at it, more lottery tickets to use here.
Yeah, and that's typically their preferred philosophy, and we've heard Goot say that a lot. And the numbers back that up. They're usually trying to exit the draft with, maybe if not the most picks, being on the higher end of that scale. So I think you hit it though. I think what that really does is illustrate how they felt about this draft class, and there was definitely some rumblings out there about that. I think it was Andrew Brandt that had said that basically the day 3 pool of prospects in this draft were just not completely. I mean, there were players there. We picked some of them, but it was very depleted compared to what it could have been because of NIL. And he laid out the numbers. It's like, look, you can come to the NFL where you're not guaranteed a roster spot, and you know, realistically, day 3 guys, your shot's even longer. You might make $1 million or $2 million here, a couple $1 million, or you can stay in college, make a couple $1 million and have a guaranteed roster spot. You know, you're big man on the team, big fish, small pond kind of thing. That's attractive to young men, right? Like, and I said this very early on in the NIL era. Eventually, the NFL is going to have a problem with this. Like, you're going to see the NFL probably exercise a little power over the NCAA at some point. And I don't know what that would look like, but the NFL is way too big to let college ball affect its product. It's just not going to do it. You know, there's way too much power in the NFL, and they're going to get their way. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how they'll force that, if it'll be some unseen things, right? Like if it's just, you know, someone from the NFL going to meet someone at the NCAA saying, hey, look, y'all are causing us some problems. You need to fix it. Here's what needs to happen. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, but I do think that will eventually be addressed. Maybe it comes with some increased NIL restrictions, right? Like can't be transferring every stinking year. That needs to happen regardless. But there's going to be some type of cap. There's going to be something that steers guys back towards the NFL if they're on the bubble. But ultimately, the other thing that I heard a lot of is that there's a very high affinity for the 2027 class. So a lot of GMs really like the 2027 class that's coming, and that checks out with the way that Goot is stacking picks next year right now. And he was not willing to dip into that pot for this year. You know, and that was one scenario I thought you'd see because you have such an abundance of picks next year, seemingly. I thought you might see 1 or 2 of those get put up, you know, in order to move up in this draft or to add to this draft or to this offseason. That didn't happen at all. So that's an interesting tip, I think. We'll have to start paying attention to this 2027 class here, maybe a little earlier than usual. But overall, I guess getting back to the question, least favorite draft pick for me, it was Damani Jackson. I you know, he was at the Shrine Bowl too, and I don't want to speak poorly of guys. I'm not going to sit here and dog the guy. I just wasn't impressed. You know, I didn't see play from him at the Shrine Bowl that was like, oh dang, man. Like, I'm not a professional scout, so I could just be wrong, you know, and that's fine. But, you know, like the Nebraska corner, Sierra Wright, and I think he went undrafted. He had a really good Shrine Bowl. He was playing really well in the Shrine Bowl. I thought he was better than Domani Jackson at the Shrine Bowl. But I think what you're doing at that point in the draft, and you hear this a lot from the draft commentators, is you're going after traits at that point. You're not necessarily going after production or putting all sorts of stock into what a guy did in college or who he was or anything like that. You're just looking at the athlete and going, can we work with that or not? Domani Jackson's a good athlete, man. He is. I mean, he was a 5-star recruit. He's got the pedigree. It just didn't quite go very well for him in college. I didn't watch him enough to know why. There's a lot of different things you could probably point to with the way that college football has been changing over the last few years. So yeah, for me, I didn't like the pick. I wasn't a fan of it. I can't say here's the guy they should have taken instead, but I will go back to what I said before. Them picking him, I think, is a good sign, right? They see something in the guy that I don't see. And again, I'm not some master scout. I'm not the brilliant guy. I just don't see it. Like, my pedestrian eyes don't see it. But they do. And I like that. That excites me because he is athletic. He's a good athlete. Again, great pedigree, 5-star recruit coming out of high school. So hopefully they can harness that, whatever that was, and bring that back. And you got 2 high quality corners in this draft. I think that would be fantastic. I'd love to be wrong. But yeah, that was my least favorite pick. Because I don't see it. And maybe he could be a good special teams contributor. He's a good athlete. He's fast. I don't know what kind of tackler he is, but yeah, it just wasn't. I wasn't wild about that one. The rest of them, I love them. I love the picks. I really do. So So let's get into a few of them here. We talked a little bit about Sutton, Danny Dennis Sutton. I'll slow down my words here, but Brandon Cisse, man, is he CB1? Because I hear there's some rumblings, and I think somebody said it in the comments. Let me see if I can go back and find the comment. Here we go. From our buddy Chris the Casual in. I think someone from Packaday said they didn't think Cisse would be ready until year 3. Thoughts? I would disagree with that.
I disagree with that highly. I don't know who would have said that, but I don't think he walks in as CB1. Like, no, it's going to take him some time. He might be starting game 1, or he might not be. Like, he might be reserved playing dime defense for him week 1. But he could very well be the starter week 1. Like, he's the most talented cornerback on their roster. Doesn't mean he's going to start right away for them. But going back to Chris's comment, I don't know who made that comment. It might take him 3 years. Like, no way. I think he's going to be a contributor at some point week 1 or season, his first season. Might not be week 1, but maybe it is. I think he's going to contribute during his rookie year and get better from there. But he's definitely their most talented cornerback right away. As soon as he's in the building, he's their most talented guy. And wouldn't surprise me at all if he wins one of the jobs at outside corner. Like, I think Nixon's pretty, in their eyes, I think he's going to be a starter. But that other cornerback spot, you're going to get competition with Valentine and St. Just and Cisse now. And he might win it and be the starter week 1. If he's not, don't panic and don't start calling him a bust.
Right.
Because he is younger. He's turning 21 over the summer, which is great. And they like that. There's a lot of development time there. And he needs work. But very good athlete, good size, ton of ability. Like, he'll be a starter for this team. He'll be a contributor. Certainly more than 3 years in. I think he'll be a contributor for him as a rookie. Whether it's week 1 or not, we'll see. But it could be. And, yeah, he's really talented. I think we had touched on him briefly last week when we did our cornerback preview before the draft. But he was kind of like a guy, like, going into the draft and you start, like, looking at who could be available for them at 52, and you're figuring out, like, this guy's probably gone. Like, what's a realistic option? It seemed like all the cornerbacks that they would like, the non-small guys, were going to be taken before him or really weren't second-round guys. And then it was kind of like, all right, Cisse's probably going to be a second-round guy, but does he get the 52? And then, like, I started looking at him and, like, reading up on him more last week before the draft, because it kind of seemed like if there's one of those second-round guys that could be there that they would take, it was going to be Cisse. And I like him. There's work obviously to be done, and he's got to improve. But the athletic ability is there. And I mean, like, we talked about Chris Johnson last week. He ended up going in the first round to the Dolphins, which is interesting. Packers South. I think that probably tells you what Gutekunst would have thought about Chris Johnson as well, that the fact that John Eric Sullivan takes him in the first round. But I don't think once he got in the second round, I don't think there were a whole lot of realistic options for corners that they would have liked, that would have meant their thresholds and what they look for. But Cisse was one of them. And I thought he made a ton of sense. Real solid pick. The more I've learned about him, the more I like. And, really happy with the pick. I think they had some other guys at other positions there that they could have taken, but, sitting there as it was happening, thought it made a lot of sense for them to take him, and I have no complaints whatsoever that they took him, and really looking forward to seeing what he's going to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm as excited about him as I've been for I guess any DB they've drafted since Jair. I was pretty excited about Jair.
Yeah.
But no, I'm optimistic. If we want to, let's offer up some of the other side, right? Like, what are the knocks on him? What would be holding him back? So there's all sorts of opinions out there. Nobody knows until the guy gets on the football field. But I like Dane Brugler. I've followed Dane for a while. Very sharp dude, does the work. Got to talk to him at the Shrine Bowl too, and there's just a lot to respect about Dane and the way he approaches things. But he's got the beast that he puts out every year, and so his scouting report on Cisse and the Beast, I'll just read through it. A 1-year starter, South Carolina, 2-year starter overall because he was at North Carolina State before that. Cisse was primarily an outside corner in defensive coordinator Clayton White's scheme. He played 2 seasons at NC State before moving to Gamecocks as a junior. He posted mediocre production, 5 passes defended and 1 interception. And he was part of a rotation on several 2025 tapes, averaging just 41 snaps per game. He's an explosive athlete. Cisse plays with excess burst and speed to fly the football. He tends to declare his hips too early and relies too heavily on his athleticism rather than his technique or anticipation, leading to coverage losses. When he finds the football, he is capable of impressive athletic feats to knock it away, but he needs to be more consistent with his body phasing to shrink catch windows. Despite needing to clean things up in the run game, his downhill toughness is great to see. So I wanted to read that because he does hit on a few things that I think most people have talked about. That last one being the first thing that came up that I heard was, oh, well, he's not good in the run game. Well, he's got an elite PFF run grade. I know we're not all super fans of PFF right now, but I mean, if you got an elite grade from them, you're not bad. He had an 89.2 run grade last year in 2025. It's pretty damn good. And if you watch the tape, he is willing. He makes some tackles. He makes some real hits. The guy does not shy away from contact. I think it's sloppy. It's raw. He's not been coached on proper techniques, I don't think, very much.
He's a better tackler than Valentine, just walking through the door. He's
for
way
sure.
Better than Valentine.
For sure. And I think what I read there in that feedback from Dane, and generally kind of, I think that's kind of fair feedback that has echoed across many scouts. That stuff to me seems coachable. That seems like coachable stuff. Like, hey, don't open your hips too early. Don't show that. Hey, instead of here, do it here, right? Like, wait till you see this instead of this. There's ways that you can watch film and go, now do it. And you can try to instill that in the game and on the field. There's things that can't be coached. Mentality is one of them. It's very difficult to coach mentality. So if he shies away from contact, not a good sign. You're not going to coach him into wanting contact. Now, if he doesn't shy away from contact, he just doesn't know how to make contact very well. You can coach that. You can definitely coach that. Or if he makes contact really well, he just doesn't wrap up. You can coach that for sure. The one note he says, let's see here. I want to go back to the comment about the catch window. He needs to be more consistent with his body phasing to shrink catch windows. That is something that I think is less coachable, but because again, that's more mentality, I think, than it is coaching. But you can coach some of it, right? Because with the hips comment, if he's opening his hips too early, that can cause him to not be able to get in phase and let those windows open up. If he fixes that issue, I think, improves. Maybe it doesn't get fixed, but if you fix that at hip timing and the anticipation, you can narrow those catch windows. Even lesser athletes, like think of a Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde didn't have a huge vertical, wasn't a fast 40. He was twitchy and quick, though, and he could close windows with anticipation. I would argue that was one of the things he did really well in his career. So that's where I think these things that you would knock Cisse for are coachable. The reason that's exciting is, again, he's 20 years old, man. Like, he's still getting man muscles. Like, the dude is still a kid. Like, his mind is going to keep growing until he's 25. So he's still very much in a learning mode, where some of these guys that are coming out right now are not, right? And I can't say that like with super absolute, but the point being, they're more grown men. They're more decided in how they approach their profession. When you're 20 years old, gosh, man, I remember when I was 20, good Lord. I'll tell you what, I wasn't ready to play in the NFL. I was a dummy when I was 20, man. So I get excited because the things that I hear are coachable. So you get him with a good coach, you get him around good players and in a good system. I think that the upside for him is massive, and I love it. I'm very, very excited about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other negative for the drawback is he just hasn't had much ball production. 2 interceptions in 3 years. So he may never be a big interception guy for you. Okay, you want that production, but if he's locking down his dude, I'll take that, even if you're not giving me a lot of interceptions, right? And I think he's got
Nnamdi Asomugha.
Yeah, I think he's got the ability to do that. He's got speed and athletic ability that you can't teach. Absolutely needs work, needs to get better, but the youth and the athleticism behind it is there. Like he's got a ton to work with, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if he comes out of this draft as one of the top cornerbacks overall in the class. Seems like a really smart player, really into football and aware of, players and teams and who he's going up against and studying players and always trying to get better at what he does. And that goes a long way too. So I like the pick. Yeah, you mentioned some of the things he needs to work on. Every player picked in that draft needs to work on a ton of things, right? None of them are finished products coming in. He can get better at it, but a lot of it's coachable, and it's a lot of it he's going to learn just from being an NFL player and experience and just growing and getting better as a player, just in age and game reps. So I like it a lot. I think the pick made all kinds of sense for them, and it fits a need, and it improves their cornerback room greatly from where it was. He's the most talented cornerback now on this team by far, and excited to see what he can be. I hope he hits the ground running. I hope he's, week one starter for them. We'll see if he does. It's definitely going to be in a competition. It's not going to be handed to him. He's not walking through the door being the starter. So it may take some time for him to get on the field and find consistent snaps each week, but maybe it doesn't. The competition ahead of him, I'll be nice and say it's questionable. He's not going up against Patrick Surtain or Sauce Gardner or Derek Stingley or any of the other top cornerbacks. So it's not a huge mountain to climb. But he's going to have to earn it, and he's going to have to earn it with a new defensive coordinator, new scheme for everyone. So he may start week one. It may take him till week 5, week 10, or something like that to be a big time contributor. But I think it's going to happen for him at some point during his rookie year, where he's playing a lot of snaps for them and is being counted on greatly at cornerback.
Well, and this goes for all of the defensive guys in this class. The playing field is a little bit leveled for them because of the new system. And again, we're not sure if Gannon even exists right now. We believe he does in theory. But we can only assume that his system will not be identical to Hafley's system. So everybody will be in somewhat of a learning mode. Maybe for sure some less than others. But yeah, I think that does give him at least a slight advantage to come in, and if he picks up the system quicker than Valentine, then yeah, I mean, he's already your CB2, and probably say that for Nixon too. If he picks it up quicker than him. But I think that what you'll end up with is Nixon will think that he's CB1 because they're both on the field at the same time. Yeah. But I think we'll all know who real CB1 is.
Yeah, but adjust the expectations if he's not starting week 1, and even if he is, he's not going to be he's not going to be a corner they put out there against every team's number. Like, he's not going to be shadowing Justin Jefferson right away. You don't want him to do that.
No,
but if he's not doing that, it's fine. They're probably not going to have anybody doing that, but he's their most talented guy, and wouldn't surprise me at all if he's out there week 1 starting opposite Nixon. But they're just adding St. Juste is going to improve that competition, and that's going to help a ton just from where they were last season in the cornerback room, where you had a converted wide receiver as you're essentially your number 3 outside guy, though he never got on the field at cornerback. But you didn't have a lot of players that you could rely on, and it just had a ton of question marks, and you still have a ton of question marks. But I think the additions of St. Juste and now Cisse and Jackson, it raises your floor, it makes you deeper at the position, it gives you better competition, and
definitely.
It helps. And who knows, they might not be done. Maybe there's a veteran still to come, though I think they're probably pretty well set at the position, but you don't know. But they've improved that cornerback this offseason.
Well, so yeah, let's take that and segue a little bit. I don't think they'll add another veteran to the cornerback room. I think they might bring in Diggs. So I think he's got a little bit of the inside track, being close with Micah, having been on the team already. The coaches in the front office at least know, the person. He would be the only one I would think that they would come back with. And I think you're getting him on probably close to vet minimum. You're probably not getting him on any kind of a significant deal. I mean, if there was a market for him, he would have already been picked up. Not to say there's zero market for him, because there's probably several teams that are similar to the Packers where it's like, let's see how the draft plays out and then go from there. But I wouldn't expect any other real veterans, outside of Diggs, to be added to the cornerback room. I think you've got good depth there. Bringing in St. Juste definitely stabilizes the depth in the room. And we're sitting here talking about two cornerback positions, right? We're not even talking about nickel because Bullard's got that situation locked down. So where that might also take up another body from the room, we're not even including that position in this conversation about CV. We're really truly talking about the two outside guys. And you've got Nixon, Valentine, Cisse, St. Juste. Who's the last one?
Jackson.
Is Valentine still there?
No, Jackson's there, and then
Jackson, right? Kamal Hadden. I was trying to think of like who was coming back that was already with the Packers. So yeah, I mean, you have true depth in the cornerback room now to find your two best guys at that outside position. But what is left for Goody to do, man? Like what moves would you make now the rest of this offseason?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier. Like he specifically brought up he wished he could have got a tight end in the draft, specifically a wide tight end, so like a guy that can be in line, a blocking tight end, or a combination type. He didn't do that. There were a ton of tight ends taken. Some of them eye-opening. Some of those second-round picks at tight end. I mean, Jacksonville and Houston took guys who I think everybody expected to go on day 3. And they took them in the second round. It was crazy.
And Jacksonville got bad grades across the board on this. I didn't even see their draft, but they have got.
They did some weird things. But there were a ton of tight ends that went, and maybe that was part of like they went earlier than where Green Bay had them drafted, or like sometimes you'll lose out on guys because they go before your picks come up, and that could have been a scenario. But Goody mentioned that after the draft that he would have liked to have gotten a tight end. So I think that's one position they may address. Like he's not happy with that position, so he may look to see what's out there. There's probably, just overall in free agency, there's not much out there right now, but there will be guys that are going to get cut loose. It happens every year because after the draft, they start looking at their roster, deciding like what guys are expendable, start looking at the contracts and saying, well, we drafted a guy at this position. Should we keep this guy too that's making a lot of money? No, we're going to cut him. Like you always see veterans get cut loose this time of year, and I think that's going to happen. But tight end, one of them. I still think they could use another offensive lineman. I really like the Burton pick. We haven't talked much about Burton tonight. He can play both guard spots. He can play center. He's a tough dude. Just a really solid starter at Kentucky. He may be their long-term center at some point. He may be a guard. He may swing back and forth. I think that's nice interior depth. But like Kennard's there, Burton's there. And then I don't trust Jacob Monk. I don't see much in Travis Glover, who they seem to like a lot, but he missed the entire season last year. John Williams, who they drafted last year in the 7th round, missed the entire season. Like, I don't know. I still think they could use another swing tackle or a depth guy at offensive line. And I'm going to keep calling for a nose tackle. Like the McClellan pick, I like it. I'm fine with it. But I don't know how much he's going to contribute as a rookie, because it is tough as a defensive lineman to contribute a lot as a rookie. So I would like to see another nose tackle brought in to help McClellan, because I don't believe a whole lot in Stackhouse or Jonathan Ford, and I don't really want to see Hargrave having to play the nose tackle. So I think running back too. They may look at running back. They didn't come out of it with a running back, and you're basically Jacobs, Brooks, and then you can't possibly be counting on Lloyd. Anything you may get out of him is a bonus at this point. So like, who's your other running back? So that could be something. But I also think some of these needs may be addressed like in training camp or at the end of August when rosters are getting cut. Like, last year they picked up Kennard through trade with the Eagles at roster cuts. They picked up Brooks, 2 years ago at roster cut time. Like, you can make moves still then. But I think running back's is a spot that they may look at, and like I said, certainly tight end, and I would look nose tackle, offensive line as well. I think there's still some areas that they can address, and I think they're going to add a player or two. I can't give you names just because there's not a whole lot out there right now as far as veterans go, but I feel like there's going to be guys that are cut loose, and they're going to pick up a player or two between now and minicamp.
Well, I know, tight end is a topic of conversation in the chat too. They did go and get RJ Maryland as a UDFA. I know there's some people that are excited about that, and apparently Maryland's dad played for the Packers as well.
Russell Maryland, cool. Defensive tackle.
Yes, yeah. So that was a fun fact of the day. But are there any UDFA guys any good? I do not love Sturdivant, or however you spell it. He was so unproductive, says R Showers. Good to see R Showers. And real quick sidebar here. Happy birthday, sir. Happy early birthday. R Showers says he's in Denver, PA. I don't know if Denver, PA is close to you, Tim, but he's on his first day of a new job. Congrats, Showers. Happy birthday on Wednesday, and you should have dinner with Tim. So you guys figure that out. You guys
happy birthday. I have no idea where Denver, PA is.
What?
Yeah, I didn't know there was a Denver, PA. So I don't know where that is. Happy birthday.
Yes. But no, the question stands: are there any UDFA guys any good? So I would say RJ Maryland is definitely one to be watching, because he qualifies as that wide tight end. He's more of a receiver than a blocking type guy. And while you may not love Sturdivant, he's more athletic than the guy that the Bears spent a 3rd round pick on, and might be better. We won't pick too much fun at the Bears tonight, but I don't mind Sturdivant as a UDFA. Like, if you went off and burned a pick on him, maybe we think a little bit more about it, but there's really no risk in getting UDFAs. So if you can get a guy who's, more athletic than guys that were drafted and could potentially be better, and you didn't have to burn a draft pick, good job. Well done, Goody. Some other let's see here, UDFAs. I was trying to find that list, and then I clicked away from it. Do you have a list?
There's a few guards: Dylan Wade from Auburn, Josh Getsky from Illinois, Dylan Barrett from Iowa State. I know they had the kid from Illinois up for a visit, so they definitely liked him. They make some sense. That it's interesting. That's a position where they may be able to find a roster spot as like a 9th or 10th offensive lineman.
Sturdivant, I think, was the one that was pretty intriguing. I think he was one of the most athletic.
He was really athletic, yeah.
I know Burton
was
also
pretty solid too. Sturdivant, I don't think Sturdivant's necessarily making the team, but like, that's just betting on a traits guy with size and speed. Like, what the hell? As
nothing wrong with that.
Take a shot on him. He might not.
He's got a 9.96 RAS, man.
Right. So Maryland, maybe, like you mentioned, one of the guards I think could make the team. Other than that, it's going to be hard. Like, even the linebacker from Louisville, who I think they gave a pretty decent amount of money to, like bonuses and stuff. TJ Quinn, it's going to be tough to make the team at linebacker. Like, they have linebackers, especially when you're considering Newman and Welch. They're mainly special teams guys, but they're linebackers, so it factors in. And as a UDFA, he's going to have to be really good on special teams to make it. But they did pay. It looks like they paid him $15,000 signing bonus, $150,000 of his base salary is guaranteed. TJ Quinn, so he's going to get a shot.
UDFA getting guaranteed is rare.
Yeah, so I mean, he's probably going to be at least a practice squad guy. But that's one to keep an eye on. And I know the quarterback, he's a long shot, but maybe he's their practice squad quarterback, drones. It's going to be cool when he's throwing it, and we'll talk about drone strikes in training camp. But he might be the practice squad quarterback. He ain't going to make the 53, but maybe maybe he beats out McCord and makes it as the 3rd quarterback during the practice squad.
Well, and something to consider, especially for a guy who would be the practice squad quarterback. He is very athletic and he's pretty big. So being the scout team guy can be helpful. So if you're going up against an athletic quarterback, having that guy there for the defense to learn from throughout the week is a big deal. Very underrated. People don't talk about that very much, but the NFL, that's one of the reasons they covet their backup quarterbacks so much, is because their backup quarterbacks are responsible for giving their defense a good look on the scout team. So yeah, I definitely am intrigued by that at the very least. But I thought they did a good job with the UDFAs, man. When I started seeing those names come through, I was like, okay, all right. There's several of them that I'd have been totally happy with. Sturdivant being one as a 7th round pick. So, when we look at this, I don't think there's an issue at all. I'm excited about RJ Maryland. And then they got another tight end, and I'm just gonna try.
Good luck.
I'm not gonna. I don't think his name is Eni. I bet it's Eni, kind of like an Eli but with an N. Eni, Falai, something like that. I don't know. We'll find out. But anyway, he has a higher athletic score than RJ Maryland. I don't know anything about him. But when Goot specifically talks about a wide tight end, that's what he's looking for. He wants an athletic guy. He's not looking for the Mercedes Lewis. You know what I mean? Like that's not a wide tight end. So there's a couple guys there that may scratch that itch for him and prevent them from needing to go get a veteran tight end. But as we consider veteran tight ends, who is out there on the current free agent market, one of them that I would keep an eye out for is David Njoku. Talk about athletic tight ends. Talk about guy. I mean, he's still 29. I think he'll be 30 when the season starts. He's had a strong run in Cleveland. He's been a high character guy. I mean, through some really rough years in Cleveland, he's just gone there and worked, man. That's pretty admirable. He's a guy I could see them grabbing in Njoku. And there's a couple others out there. Waller's out there. Ertz is out there. I don't think they'll go out and get one of those older guys. I said him already. Mercedes Lewis is technically out there. I don't think those are the guys they'll go after. I think Njoku's probably on the edge of that bubble, just about to turn 30. But he still seems pretty athletic to me. I don't know that he's lost much of a step, but I don't watch a lot of the Browns, so I could be wrong about that. But he's one that I think would be an interesting one to add and have come in, be a contributor right away across from Kraft, sort of signing or sealing Musgrave's fate probably. But they may still think that Musgrave has a shot. I don't know.
The other one I'll just throw out there is Will Dissly, who played for the Seahawks and Chargers. He turns 30 in the summer, but that's not too old. Like you mentioned, Zach Ertz is older and he's coming off an injury. But yeah, Dissly's like kind of that depth tight end. He's going to block for you a little bit. Yeah, he'll catch some passes. And he had a couple good years in Seattle where he had some production for them. So, I mean, he's probably not going to put up a whole lot of numbers at this point in his career, but to give you a depth tight end, like your number 3 guy, I think he could do that. He's out there. So, yeah, he might be one that they look at as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple guys out there. It's not, it's not totally dry. There's definitely some options. But other things that they could do, tight end is definitely a position that would be interesting. I would love to see them find another one of those, Kennard type guys on the O-line. Like, find me a solid veteran backup O-lineman that you can bring in and just stabilize things. I think those guys are always out there, and usually it's a guy that we don't know about that they do. That's one move I would love to see. I don't think that they'll add any skill position players. I just don't see them going out and trying to get another receiver. I think they did that with Sky Moore, and he's obviously going to have the primary job of returning as well. I don't think you brought him in just because you want to see him in the offense. So yeah, I just and then trading away Wicks and not getting another receiver in the draft. To me, what that says is we like our core on offense and we want to give them a chance to flourish, which I love it. Love it. Let's do it. But you're always wanting to add more. What if this? What if that? So, I don't know. What do you think? Am I off base there? Do you think they could add any more skill guys?
I doubt it. I think they're telling us what they want to do at receiver. They re-signed Jaden Reed too. Don't forget about that.
Right.
They want to re-sign Watson. You got Matthew Golden. You got Savion Williams if they use him finally as a receiver. Like Tucker Kraft coming back at tight end. Like those are their guys, and I don't see them adding. No, I don't. I mean, it's going to be tough as a receiver to make the team because you already have 4 plus, whatever you consider Bill Melton. Sky Moore is going to be primarily a return guy, but that's his position too, receiver. So like that factors in. So I don't see them adding a receiver. Never say never. Maybe it's a guy they get like on the veteran minimum and they let him come in to compete for a roster spot and see if he makes it or not. That could be, but I don't think there's a great need for it at this point. I think if they were going to do that, they would have drafted one, and they obviously were content not to do that in the draft. So no, I don't think it's going to be a receiver. Maybe a running back at some point, and that would make sense. But I just kind of feel like if you're looking for like a number 2 or number 3 running back, like you can find one of those guys. Like you can find one of those guys that's going to be out there at some point during training camp or at roster cut down at the end of August. Maybe you can find one here in the next few weeks or month or so before mini camp. But I don't see like a big priority for them, at least for what they've shown, to go out there and get that kind of guy.
Right. Yeah. And I just don't think they need to, and another one we haven't even mentioned here. And our friend R Showers is bringing it in. Says, I want to see Savion play a legit role as a vast potential and not for some stupid jet sweeps. I agree with that, man. I don't understand why you have Savion Williams. And this is hard to probably remember. The guy is 6'5", 225. He's built just shy of like a Megatron. He is a physical specimen. He's huge and he's fast. You don't often see a guy 6'5", 225 being used as a gadget player. That's just weird to me. I didn't understand it last season. And we certainly didn't understand the use of Golden either. So hopefully they've gone back to the drawing board this offseason and said, okay, let's maybe be a little bit more responsible with the guys that we have and use them wisely. But yeah, I totally agree with this. Like unleash Savion Williams as the big bully receiver that he is.
I agree with you. And I'm 100% on board with what you're saying. Like their usage of him and their role for him last year never made any sense. It was terrible. Like every time when he came in, you knew he was getting the ball in like a jet sweep or some kind of handoff or something,
like a screen or something.
Yeah, and it was like, oh, here's Savion, he's getting the ball, and it would go no. And it was like, use him as a receiver. Like if you spend a 3rd round draft pick on a gadget player to play like 10 snaps, you just blew a 3rd round pick. That's a horrible use of your asset there.
Yeah.
If you want him to be a receiver and develop as a receiver, let him go and be a receiver. Develop him to be a receiver. And they never did that. I know he had an injury and was playing through it a lot of the year, but
fine.
Still, like, and they eventually shut him down, but like how you're using him, it was terrible. And he did, to his credit, make was it the Giants game or one of the Bears
there was
games?
One, I know what you're talking about.
Like downfield play. Yeah, and it was like, holy crap, like look at what he's capable. Like here he is. That's what he's capable of. I think it was the Giants game. He can do that for you. Like, there you go. You don't have to just use him as a gadget guy. And that made me, like, it was great to see that flash, but it was almost like even more frustrating. Like, why weren't we using this guy as a receiver? So now, like, you take away Wicks, you take away Dobbs, like there's fewer guys in front of him. Maybe now he's just a receiver. And like, I wouldn't mind the occasional jet sweeps.
Sure. Fine. Keep it, change things up to keep the defense guessing, but that shouldn't be his primary role.
Exactly. It shouldn't be his primary role. Like, develop him as a receiver. He's a big body receiver. Like, they don't have a lot of big receivers. Golden and Reed aren't big receivers. Watson is, but now it's Watson and Savion now. Like, Sky Moore.
And they're both bigger than the average big receiver. A big receiver is like 6'3", 215. These guys are both 6'5". I guess Watson is about 215, but Savion being 225, man, like, come on, dude, that's a big dude. You should be playing bully ball with both of those guys out there. And then Kraft in the middle. you've got a massive size advantage that I don't think they scratch the surface on at all.
No, and hopefully they do, and they don't like a lot of what Kraft did was just run after catch stuff where he was just a beast after he got the ball in his hands. But like, let's design some stuff for him too, like make things run through him a little bit more. And then maybe Savion can take some of the slants and stuff that Romeo Dobbs used to run because he's got the big body. Like he can go over the middle, right? Like he can take a shot over the middle because he's a big dude. Let him go up and get the ball, or even down the field, let him use his size to outmuscle somebody and go up and get a catch. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic about how they should be using their weapons better than they did last season.
Yeah. So hopefully they've seen that and they're like, yeah, we don't need anything else. We just need to use these properly and then we'll be all right. Hopefully that's what we get to see. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, and our friend Chris the Casual says grab Diggs. I agree. I think grab Diggs. I don't know that there's any other skill position moves that you're going to make. I heard Josh Jacobs' brother is in camp on a visit, so that could be interesting to have a double Jacobs backfield. Although I don't know much about his brother. He played at UAB, went undrafted, so he's probably not super phenomenal. But yeah, that could be an interesting one. I just think they're probably pretty happy with Chris Brooks, Jacobs, hopeful for Lloyd. But yeah, I mean, I think as a fan, you got to just like write Lloyd off, and anything you get is upside and good. But maybe there's room for another running back to come in. I wouldn't expect like a splash.
No,
just probably like an easy signing,
like an Emmanuel Wilson type of player. And I think you can find those guys. Like
absolutely,
you can find somebody like
that. All right, so we didn't get to go too deep into all of our draft picks. We definitely went in on Cisse and Dennis Sutton, and I got to have a little fun with some Trey Smack talk. But next week we will go further into McClellan, Burton, talk a little bit more about those guys, and you just never know what'll unfold. But I'll tell you what, if there is going to be a move made, it will be made tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. So stay tuned, and we'll get a whole week before we get to talk about it, because that's how these things go. But no, this was overall, I enjoyed the draft class. I think it's a good draft class. Oh, hold up. We got a high quality comment here I got to get to. Chris the Casual says, Damian Martinez? ? Absolutely, dude. I completely forgot about Damian Martinez, but that guy is on the roster. He's, I think, technically practice squad, but he would be an excellent RB3. And I am a little bit biased because I got to see him in high school here at Louisville High School. But he was fun to watch in college. He's a beast running back, big dude. He's very athletic. He would be a great one. So I don't think they need to bring in anybody else.
He was drafted by Seattle last year, and Green Bay brought him in, I think, late in the year to the practice squad. So he's there, and they're keeping him around. So yeah, I mean, he's young.
Well, obviously, it's not like he was some sort of massive bust. Seattle is just really deep at running back.
They had other backs, right? Yeah, and he was I think he was a 7th round pick, so he was a late round guy. But yeah, I mean, he's got a shot. And remember, Emmanuel Wilson made this team as an undrafted dude coming out of like a Division II school, and he stuck around for 3 years. So yeah, it could be Damian Martinez. It could be somebody else that's not even on their roster. It could be somebody that's on somebody else's roster right now. Who knows? But I think Damian Martinez deserves a look for sure.
Absolutely. So we'll definitely dive a little bit deeper into some of these other additions next week, because I definitely want to talk some Yager Burton. And I do want to talk more about Chris McClellan, because they traded up for the guy. He was honestly not much on my radar. I mean, I knew about him, didn't watch much of him. He just wasn't a guy that I keyed in on that they'd be targeting. So I'd like to dig in more on him, talk a little bit more about him. So we'll get to him next week, and we'll go a little bit deeper on this class. Do we have the mini camp, or is it OTAs? What do they have coming up?
I think
mini camp in May.
Rookie mini camps next week.
Okay.
I believe next weekend or this weekend. I believe that's what this. And then they start getting into their OTAs and stuff later in May. Minicamp's not until June, but I believe it's rookie minicamp. Normally it is the weekend after the draft. I haven't seen that officially announced, but usually it's the weekend after the draft, so rookie minicamp.
So we might have a little bit of real football to talk about next week. So between now and then, but definitely it's an exciting time to be a Packers fan, right? And we're obviously biased. We love the Packers, and but we're honest, right? Like if they had a bad draft, we'd sit here and we'd be dogging it.
Yeah.
I don't think it was a bad draft. Like I said, I give it a B+. Tim, do you want to give it a grade?
It's incomplete.
Incomplete. Hey,
we don't know nothing.
Grade you could give. There we go. But if y'all been hanging out with us tonight, you enjoyed this breakdown of the draft class, you're excited to be a Packers fan, spike that like button for me, and definitely get on over to YouTube. Type in Packers Talk Network. Network's important. That's going to get you where you're going. Packers Talk Network. You'll find our channel. Hit that subscribe button. Join us every Monday night at 9:30 p.m. Central, streaming live, talking Pack. And come on back next week. Tell a friend, bring a friend, and help us meet a new Packer fan. And, if you got an NFC North rival friend, they can come too. We'll talk a little smack about their draft class. But most of all, come on back, friends. Hang out with us again. And, of course, as always, go Pack, go.